the FBI uncovered a name that shocked the world. And if the rumors are true, the king's throne won't stand for long.
I'm now going to turn the podium over to FBI Director Kash Patel.
Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any. I'll just highlight some.
Now to a story that's really been making headlines. Current and former NBA players, as well as a head coach, were arrested in connection with 2 federal gambling investigations. Michael Yoshida has the story for us tonight.
This is the insider trading saga for the NBA.
Dozens, including several current and former NBA players and a coach, arrested in connection with years-long illegal gambling operations. Charges include money laundering, wire fraud, even armed robbery.
One of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States.
Prosecutors say 6 people, including Miami Heat player Terry Rozier, helped rig games with sports bettors. In one instance, they allege Rozier faked an injury.
Members of the group placed more than $200,000 in wagers on his under statistics. Rozier exited the game after just 9 minutes, and those bets paid out, generating tens of thousands of dollars in profit.
Through his lawyers, Rozier denied any wrongdoing. In the second alleged scheme, prosecutors say 31 people, including members of 3 New York Mafia families, as well as Chauncey Billups, an NBA Hall of Famer and champion, and current Portland Trail Blazers head coach, were involved in illegal fixed poker games held across the country.
Exploiting the notoriety of some and the wallets of many to fund the Italian crime families.
Prosecutors say victims, called Fish, were lured to play alongside high-profile athletes called face cards, and everyone but the victims was in on the scam, using rigged shuffling machines, poker chip analyzers, x-ray tables, and even special contact lenses and eyeglasses to read marked cards.
Your winning streak has ended. Your luck has run out.
The NBA says Billups and Rozier were immediately placed on leave from their teams as the association cooperates with investigators and reviews the federal indictments.
October 30th, 2025, a date that will live in basketball infamy. While most fans were checking their fantasy lineups and debating MVP candidates, the FBI was executing one of the largest coordinated takedowns in sports history. 11 states, over 30 arrests. And a scandal so massive, it makes every previous NBA controversy look like a parking ticket. FBI Director Kash Patel stood at that podium yesterday with the kind of expression that says, "You're not ready for what I'm about to tell you." And he was right. Nobody was ready. Today we are here to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra, Patel announced, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of what he was revealing. La Cosa Nostra, the Mafia, in the NBA. Let that sink in for a second. The names started dropping like bodies in a mob movie. Chauncey Billups, yes, the Chauncey Billups, current head coach of the Portland Trail Blazers and NBA Hall of Famer. Damon Jones, former NBA player and coach. Terry Rozier, current NBA player with a max contract, all taken into custody. This is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spans the course of years. Patel continued, his words landing like hammer blows on the basketball world's collective conscience.
Range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across the country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure. The men and women that are standing up here today worked tireless hours, days, months, and years. And the fraud.
So you have to imagine it would be really tough to get away with this if you tried it. But there's more of the list, more of the highlights from Joe Pompliano on this list. So there are 2 separate indictments. The first involves 6 defendants accused of participating in a sports corruption scheme that exploited insider information involving NBA players and teams. So that's a big one. The defendants leveraged their connections to place prop bets based on confidential insider information, winning tens of thousands of dollars per bet. Now, that's the Porter thing, right, where he was trying to manipulate the prop bets, where you say you can get less rebounds, less points, or whatever.
But here's the thing that should terrify every NBA fan. Every player, every executive sitting in those plush corner offices. This wasn't just about a few bad apples. This was systematic. This was organized. This was sophisticated beyond anything we've seen in professional sports. The charges? Wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. And we're not talking about pocket change here. Director Patel made that crystal clear. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation. Tens of millions. Gone, stolen, swindled, from the league, from fans, from the integrity of the game itself. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the FBI dropped another bomb. This operation had tentacles reaching into the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchesi crime families. 4 of the 5 families. In one case. Do you understand how rare that is? How deep this goes? But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody, and I mean nobody, expected. One name wasn't mentioned in that press conference. Not yet. But behind closed doors, in conversations between investigators and witnesses, in text messages that are now evidence, that name keeps coming up. LeBron James.
You don't hear about the NBA and the mafia in the same sentence very often. What's the connection there?
You don't hear often that the mafia is involved in anything publicly. But in this story, and in this case, according to the indictment, you've got 3 of the most well-known organized crime families in the country involved. The Bonanno family, the Gambino family, the Genovese family. They're all listed in this indictment as involved in the case. And it's a real problem for everyone involved. According to the indictment, essentially the mafia controls, I guess, some more, not necessarily rigged poker games, but just your more run-of-the-mill underground poker games in New York. It sounds like this is according to the indictment. And when these rigged poker games started popping up across the country, they got involved, both in organizing the games. This is the mafia. And also, again, according to the indictment, enforcing debt collection, and also obtaining, I guess, the technology needed to pull off the cheating in these rigged games. They robbed people, they extorted people, things like that. Those are the allegations in this indictment. So it sounds like that's where the mafia got involved.
To understand how we got here, how Caitlin Clark became the whistleblower nobody anticipated, and how LeBron's legacy now hangs in the balance, you need to understand the operation itself. Because this wasn't some street-level gambling ring. This was Ocean's 11 meets The Sopranos, with NBA jerseys instead of pinstripe suits. The FBI detailed 2 separate but connected operations, and both of them are absolutely jaw-dropping in their scope and audacity. Operation Nothing But Bet was the NBA insider betting scandal that should make every sports fan question every game they've ever watched. Here's how it worked. Players and their associates used inside information that wasn't public yet, to manipulate prop bets on major sports betting platforms. United States Attorney Knoll broke it down with chilling clarity. Between December 2022 and March 2024, these defendants perpetrated a scheme to defraud by betting on inside, non-public information about NBA athletes and teams. Think about that timeline. 2 full years, 2 complete NBA seasons. How many games were affected? How many bets were rigged? How many fans lost money betting against insiders who already knew the outcome?
De Niro Laster, Damon Jones, a former NBA player and coach, and Terry Rozier, a current NBA player. Other co-conspirators were previously charged for their roles in the scheme, including former NBA player Jonte Porter. Between December 2022 and March 2024, these defendants perpetrated a scheme to defraud by betting on inside, non-public information about NBA athletes and teams.
The information they used was surgical in its precision. When specific players would sit out future games, when they would pull themselves out early for injuries or illnesses that were about as real as a $3 bill. They had access to injury reports before teams did. They knew lineup changes before coaches announced them. They had the cheat codes to a multi-billion-dollar industry. They relied on corrupt individuals, including Jones and Rozier, Attorney Knoll explained. They also misused information obtained through long-standing friendships that they had with NBA players and coaches. Friendships, relationships built over years, in locker rooms, on team planes, at charity events, all weaponized for profit. But it gets even darker. And in at least one instance, they got their information by threatening a current player, Porter, because of his pre-existing gambling debts. They threatened players. With what? The FBI didn't specify, but when organized crime families are involved, you don't need much imagination to fill in those blanks. The mechanics of the scam were brilliant in their simplicity. They focused on prop bets, individual player performances, points, rebounds, assists. They'd bet the under. Then the player would make sure they didn't hit those numbers, sometimes by playing poorly, sometimes by leaving the game early, sometimes by not playing at all. The bets were placed through online sportsbooks and also in person at casinos, Knoll revealed. The defendants relied on a network of straw bettors to place the maximum amount of bets to increase their potential profits.
To place the maximum amount of bets to increase their potential profits. Most of these bets succeeded, and the intended losses were in the millions of dollars. The defendants then laundered their illegal winnings in various ways: peer-to-peer platforms, bank wires, and simple cash exchanges. The indictment details specific examples where the defendants profited from illegal.
A network, not one person, not two. A coordinated operation using multiple accounts, multiple people, multiple locations to avoid detection. They split the bets across platforms to stay under the radar. They used cash. They used crypto. They used peer-to-peer payment apps. They thought of everything. And for a while, it worked perfectly. Let me give you a concrete example that should make your blood boil. March 23rd, 2023. The team that shall remain unnamed for now was playing at home. Terry Rozier was in the lineup, a healthy, active, expected to play Terry Rozier. But members of the betting ring knew something the public didn't. Rozier was planning to leave the game early, not because he was injured, because the fix was in. Using that information, members of the group placed more than $200,000 in wagers on his under statistics, the NYPD detailed in their portion of the press conference. $200,000 in a single game on one player's performance. That's not gambling. That's theft with extra steps. Rozier played exactly 9 minutes. Then he grabbed his hamstring, grimaced for the cameras, and headed to the locker room. The bets paid out. Tens of thousands of dollars in profit materialized overnight. And where did that money go? The proceeds were later delivered to his home, where the group counted their cash. Picture that scene. Stacks of cash on a kitchen counter. Former teammates and friends dividing up money stolen from fans who thought they were watching a fair game. The American dream, right? But wait, there's more. Because Operation Nothing But Bet was just the appetizer.
United States versus Aiello, the rigged poker game case. Beginning as early as 2019, the defendants in this case orchestrated a scheme to use wireless cheating technology to run rigged poker games across the United States, including in the Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, and Manhattan. The scheme targeted victims known as, quote, fish.
Operation Zen diagram makes the betting scandal look like a church raffle.
This was a multi-year scheme to rig high-stakes poker games across the United States. The Hamptons, Las Vegas, Miami, Manhattan, anywhere rich people gathered to play cards, this operation was there, waiting to fleece them. And they didn't use marked cards or sleight of hand. They used technology that would make James Bond jealous. The defendants used a variety of very sophisticated cheating technologies, Attorney Knoll explained, barely able to hide his amazement at what investigators had uncovered. Custom shuffling machines that could read every card in the deck, barcoded playing cards, hidden cameras built into tables, hidden cameras built into light fixtures, poker chip trays with secret scanners, contact lenses that could read invisible ink on card backs, eyeglasses with the same capability, and the piece de resistance, an X-ray table that could read cards face down on the felt. They actually showed a demonstration at the press conference, cards lying face down on what looked like a normal poker table, but through the screen, through the X-ray technology embedded in the table itself, you could see every card, every hand, every advantage. What the victims didn't know was that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam, Knoll revealed. Face cards. That's what they called the celebrities and former athletes they used as bait. Because what high roller wouldn't want to play poker with an NBA champion? What wealthy businessman wouldn't jump at the chance to sit across from a Hall of Famer? Chauncey Billups was one of those face cards. Damon Jones was another. These weren't low-level players. These were legends of the game, respected figures with championship rings and ESPN analyst contracts. The scheme targeted victims known as fish, who were often lured to participate in these rigged games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes, the FBI detailed. One victim lost $1.8 million. In total, losses exceeded $7 million. And those are just the losses they've confirmed so far. The investigation is ongoing. The numbers keep climbing. And here's where LeBron's name enters the conversation in ways that should terrify Lakers fans and basketball historians alike. The indictment specifically mentions the Los Angeles Lakers among the teams whose players were involved in or connected to these operations. Not in the headlines yet, not in the mainstream media coverage, but it's in there, buried in hundreds of pages of legal documents that are only now starting to circulate among journalists and legal experts. LeBron has never been shy about his love of poker. He's posted about it on social media. He's been photographed at high-stakes games. He has friendships with several of the arrested individuals that go back years. And then there's Caitlin Clark. Over the past week, Caitlin has been posting cryptically on social media. Nothing direct, nothing accusatory, but coded messages that those paying attention couldn't miss. Integrity matters more than stats, one post read. The truth always comes out eventually, another stated. Some legends are built on lies, she wrote just 3 days before the FBI press conference. Sources close to Caitlin, people who have worked with her, people in her inner circle, say she's been approached by investigators multiple times, over several months. They wanted to know about conversations she'd overheard, events she'd attended, players she'd met at league functions and charity events. And according to those same sources, Caitlin told close friends something that should shake the foundation of professional basketball. The biggest names in basketball aren't safe. Nobody is above this. The biggest names in basketball. There aren't many names bigger than LeBron James. His camp has been suspiciously silent. No statements, no denials, no press releases declaring his innocence or distancing himself from the arrested players. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, calculated, scared. Social media exploded. Within hours of the FBI press conference, LeBron's name was trending. Not because he was mentioned, but because fans could read between the lines. They could see the connections. They could do the math. If LeBron's involved, the NBA is finished, one viral tweet declared. Caitlin Clark is the only honest person in basketball, another proclaimed.
"The king is about to fall, and nobody can save him," wrote a sports journalist with 2 million followers. The fan reaction split down generational lines. Older fans, LeBron's contemporaries, defended him fiercely. "Innocent until proven guilty," they shouted into the void. "No evidence," they insisted. "He would never." But younger fans, Caitlyn's generation, weren't buying it. They'd grown up watching scandals break and cover-ups crumble. They'd seen too many legends fall. They were ready to believe the worst. And then the receipts started surfacing.
Photos emerged on social media. LeBron at a poker table in the Hamptons, summer 2023, sitting 2 seats away from someone who was arrested yesterday, laughing, shaking hands, looking comfortable in a game that, according to the FBI, might have been rigged. Text messages leaked, nothing incriminating on their own, but suspicious in context. Conversations about the game on Thursday and making sure everyone knows the plan and this is going to pay off big time. Could be innocent, could be about actual basketball, could be about business deals, or could be evidence of something far more sinister. Financial records began circulating among investigative journalists. Unusual transfers, large cash deposits, cryptocurrency transactions that didn't quite make sense for a player of LeBron's legitimate income level. Again, nothing definitive, nothing that would hold up in court on its own, but the smoke was getting thicker, and everyone knows what smoke usually means. The poker operation itself was a masterclass in organized crime meeting modern technology. The games weren't random. They were carefully orchestrated events with specific roles for every participant. The quarterback was the player at the table who received the information from the offsite operator. This person would get text messages or phone signals telling them who had the best hand. Then they'd signal the other conspirators at the table using prearranged gestures, a chip placement, a card tap, a specific way of looking at their cards. The quarterback then signaled secretly the information he had received to others at the table, and together they used that information in order to win their games and to cheat the victims, Attorney Noel explained. The offsite operator sat in a van or a hotel room or a rented office watching the camera feeds, analyzing the cards and sending instructions to the quarterback. It was sophisticated. It was coordinated. It required technology, planning, and most importantly, trust. That's what the mafia provided. The Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese crime families, they had pre-existing control over illegal poker games in New York. They had the connections, the muscle, the enforcement mechanisms when people didn't pay their debts. The mafia had pre-existing control over non-rigged illegal poker games around New York City. As a result, they also became involved in the rigged poker games, helping to organize the games and taking a cut of the proceedings and working to enforce the collection of debts, the FBI detailed. Enforce the collection of debts. That's mob speak for violence, for intimidation, for threats that make people empty their bank accounts and liquidate their assets and do whatever it takes to pay what they owe. Some of the defendants and their co-conspirators also committed acts of violence, including the gunpoint robbery of a person in order to obtain a rigged shuffling machine and extortions that were perpetrated against victims in order to ensure that they repaid their gambling debts, Noel revealed. Gunpoint robbery, extortions. This wasn't just white-collar crime, this was violent crime. People got hurt. People got scared. People's lives were threatened over poker debts and gambling operations. And NBA players, people who make millions of dollars a year playing basketball, people who are supposed to be role models, were connected to all of it. The question burning in everyone's mind, how high does this go? How many players knew? How many participated? How many looked the other way? And most importantly, is LeBron James one of them? Caitlin Clark wasn't backing down. In fact, she was doubling down. Friends say she's been speaking with her lawyers, preparing for what might come next, ready to testify if called, ready to tell what she knows. "The sport I love is being destroyed by greed," she reportedly told someone close to her, "and I won't be silent while it happens." Her reputation as basketball's moral compass, earned through years of playing clean, speaking honestly, and refusing to compromise her values, suddenly carried more weight than any MVP trophy or championship ring. This was the new guard challenging the old guard. This was integrity, confronting corruption. This was Caitlin Clark, the face of women's basketball, and maybe all of basketball, standing up and saying enough. The generational divide in the sport was never more apparent. LeBron's era, with its AAU corruption and super teams and player empowerment and money above all else mentality, was being challenged by Caitlin's generation, who wanted the sport to mean something more than endorsement deals and Instagram followers. And the FBI made it clear this was far from over. An investigation that is very much ongoing, Attorney Noel stated firmly. More arrests expected, more evidence being analyzed, more cooperating witnesses coming forward, more dominoes waiting to fall. The entire basketball world was holding its breath, waiting to see whose name would appear next in an indictment, waiting to see if the whispers about LeBron would become shouts, waiting to see if Caitlin's warnings would prove prophetic.
While the basketball world churned with speculation and fear, Caitlin Clark did something that shocked everyone. She stopped being cryptic. In conversations with investigators, in statements to people close to her, in the careful words she chose when asked about the scandal, Caitlin made her position crystal clear. The sport I love is being destroyed by people who care more about money than the game, sources close to her report she said. And I refuse to stay silent while legends who should know better participate in that destruction. Legends who should know better. The implication was impossible to miss. Caitlin's voice matters more than anyone else's right now because she represents something the NBA desperately needs: credibility. She's clean. She's honest. She's never been connected to any scandal, any controversy, any hint of impropriety. When she speaks, people listen. When she points a finger, people look. The generational divide she represents isn't just about age. It's about values. It's about what basketball means and should mean. LeBron's generation grew up in an era where getting paid was the ultimate goal, where loyalty was a weakness, where securing the bag justified almost anything. Caitlin's generation sees sports differently. They grew up with social media transparency, with instant accountability, with the knowledge that every action has consequences. They can't hide behind PR teams and carefully crafted images. They have to be real or get exposed. And Caitlin is using that platform, that voice, that credibility to hold the old guard accountable. This isn't about tearing people down, she reportedly told someone close to her. This is about protecting the integrity of basketball for the next generation. If we don't stand up now, if we don't demand better, what kind of sport are we leaving behind? The FBI's work continues. The investigation expands. More evidence gets analyzed. More witnesses come forward. The noose tightens. Director Patel made it clear this wasn't political. This wasn't personal. This was justice. Under President Trump's administration, there is no room for any type of criminal behavior, be it on the world's largest stage or in the back rooms where card games are being played, he declared. The message was unmistakable. Nobody is too big to fall. No legacy is too secure to survive the truth. No amount of fame or achievement will protect you from consequences. So where does this leave LeBron James? Even if he's never charged, even if no direct evidence connects him to illegal activity, even if every photo and text message in financial transaction has an innocent explanation, the damage is done. His name is now forever linked to the biggest scandal in NBA history. When people talk about this case, when they write the books and make the documentaries and teach the cautionary tales, LeBron's name will be there. Maybe in the footnotes, maybe in the main text, but there. This is the insider trading saga for the NBA. That's what this is. Insider trading. That's how they're framing it. That's how it will be remembered. And insider trading destroyed reputations far more secure than LeBron's. The comparisons are already flooding social media. Pete Rose, banned from baseball for gambling. The Black Sox scandal that nearly destroyed Major League Baseball. Lance Armstrong stripped of 7 Tour de France titles for doping. Tiger Woods, whose personal scandals derailed what should have been the greatest golf career ever. Athletic achievement can't survive moral failure. Not in the modern age. Not with social media. Not with the 24-hour news cycle. Not when the alternative is someone like Caitlin Clark, who represents everything right about sports.
The broader implications for the NBA are catastrophic. Legalized sports betting was supposed to save the league, generate billions in revenue, create new engagement opportunities. Now, every bet is suspicious. Every close game is questioned. Every injury report is examined for signs of fraud. The NYPD's Organized Crime Task Force made it clear. Players altered their performance or took themselves out of games to make sure that those bets paid out. How do you come back from that? How do you convince fans that what they're watching is real? How do you tell someone to put money on a game when players might be actively trying to lose? Fans are feeling betrayed, violated, lied to. They spent money on tickets, on jerseys, on cable packages, on betting apps, all believing they were watching real competition. Now they know better. Now they know that games were fixed, that outcomes were predetermined, that their passion was exploited for profit. The divide between LeBron supporters and Caitlyn supporters grows wider by the hour. Twitter is a war zone. Comment sections are battlegrounds. Family group chats are splitting apart over whether the king deserves the benefit of the doubt. One side screams, "He gave us championships." The other side responds, "He gave us lies." Both might be right. The question isn't whether LeBron will survive this. The question is what survival even means. Can he keep playing? Probably, if he's not indicted. Will he keep getting endorsements? Maybe, if brands decide controversy creates engagement. Will his legacy as one of the greatest ever remain intact? Not a chance, because Caitlyn Clark exposed something deeper than criminal activity. She exposed the rot at the center of modern sports, the prioritization of money over integrity, the willingness to cheat for profit, the corruption that happens when nobody is watching or when the people watching are too invested to care. And LeBron, whether guilty of crimes or not, represents that era, that mentality, that win at all costs, money over everything approach that turned basketball into a business first and a sport second. The king's throne is cracking. Not because of one scandal, not because of one investigation, but because the foundation it was built on, hype, marketing, manufactured greatness, and carefully controlled narratives, can't survive the harsh light of truth. Caitlyn Clark turned on that light. The FBI kicked in the doors, and what everyone found inside is ugly enough to destroy legacies that seemed untouchable.
The basketball world will never be the same. The arrests will continue, the investigation will expand, more names will surface, more evidence will emerge, and through it all, Caitlyn Clark stands as the conscience of a sport desperately in need of one. LeBron James, whether innocent or guilty, whether charged or cleared, will forever be the face of basketball's darkest era. His legacy, once seemingly secure among the all-time greats, now comes with an asterisk, a whisper, a question mark that will never fully disappear. Because when the FBI calls it the insider trading saga for the NBA, when organized crime families are involved, when tens of millions of dollars are stolen, and when players rig games for profit, there are no winners, only varying degrees of loss. And the biggest loss of all? The trust between fans and the game they love. So here's my question for you. Can LeBron's legacy survive this? Does it matter if he's never charged, or is the connection alone enough to taint everything he's accomplished? And is Caitlyn Clark the hero basketball needs, or is she just the messenger nobody wanted to hear from? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay updated as this story develops, because trust me, it's far from over, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is the biggest scandal in NBA history, and we're just getting started.